Now he could become the world's first trillionaire.
Tesla could give Elon Musk the chance to become the world's first trillionaire.
$1 trillion.
What if one man could become the first trillionaire in history? That man might be Elon Musk. He didn't start as the richest person in the world. In fact, Musk was once a young entrepreneur sleeping in his office while building his first company. But then, everything changed. He founded companies that transformed entire industries: electric cars with Tesla, space exploration with SpaceX, and global communication with Starlink. As these companies grew, Musk's wealth exploded. At times, his net worth has already crossed $300 billion, making him one of the richest people ever. Experts believe that if SpaceX, Tesla, and AI technology keep growing, Elon Musk could become the first person to reach trillion. A number so large, it's hard to imagine. But if anyone could do it, it might be Elon Musk.
People often look at the companies I run today and think the story started with rockets, electric cars, or artificial intelligence. But the truth is, my journey to becoming a millionaire started much earlier, long before companies like Tesla or SpaceX existed. Back in the 1990s, the internet was still new. Most people didn't fully understand how powerful it would become. But I believed something big was coming. I believed the internet would transform how humans communicate, find information, and run businesses. So my brother Kimball and I decided to take a risk. We started a company called Zip2. At the time, newspapers were struggling to move into the digital world. They had information about cities, restaurants, businesses, maps, but they didn't know how to put it online effectively. That's where our idea came in. We wanted to create an online city guide that newspapers could use to bring their content to the internet. But starting a company wasn't glamorous. In the early days, we had almost no money. My brother and I worked non-stop. Sometimes we even slept in the office. We couldn't afford a proper apartment, so the office became our home. We showered at a nearby YMCA. During the day, we coded software and built the product. At night, we tried to convince newspapers to believe in our vision. Most of them didn't understand what we were building. Many people thought the internet was just a temporary trend, but I believed it was the future. Slowly, things started to change. More newspapers began working with Zip2. Our software helped them create online city guides with maps, directories, and business listings. This was one of the early steps toward what we now take for granted, finding places online. As the company grew, investors started to notice. Zip2 eventually secured funding from venture capital firms, which allowed us to expand and improve the platform. The company became more valuable, and more newspapers began using our technology. Then, in 1999, something big happened. A major computer company called Compaq decided they wanted to acquire Zip2. They offered $307 million in cash to buy the company. For a startup that had started with almost nothing, this was a massive deal. At that time, I owned about 7% of the company. When the acquisition was completed, my share of the deal came out to around $22 million. I was 27 years old. That was the moment I officially became a millionaire. For many people, that kind of money would mean retirement. They would buy a big house, travel the world, and stop working. But I didn't see it that way. To me, the money wasn't the end of the journey, it was the beginning. I believed the internet was still in its early days, and there were even bigger opportunities ahead. Instead of keeping the money or playing it safe, I decided to invest a large portion of it into my next idea. Out of the $22 million I received from the Zip2 sale, I invested about $12 million into a new company called X.com. X.com was an online financial services company. My vision was to create a way for people to move money instantly over the internet. At the time, that idea sounded almost impossible. But I believe digital payments would eventually replace traditional banking systems. X.com later evolved and merged with another company. Eventually, it became something many people now know very well, PayPal. Looking back, becoming a millionaire at 27 wasn't really about money. It was about proving that ideas, combined with persistence and risk, could become real businesses that changed the world. Zip2 taught me something very important. If you believe strongly enough in the future, and you're willing to work harder than almost anyone else, you can build something valuable from almost nothing. The millions I made from Zip2 didn't define my success. They simply gave me the fuel to keep building bigger and more ambitious things. because for me, the real goal was never just becoming rich. The real goal was to build companies that could change the future. And in many ways, Zip2 was just the beginning of that journey, how I became a billionaire. People often ask me when I became a billionaire, they imagine there was some dramatic moment where everything suddenly changed. But the truth is, the journey to becoming a billionaire was not a single event. It was a long series of risks, failures, and decisions where I chose to bet almost everything on ideas that many people believed were impossible. After selling my first company, Zip2, in 1999, I had about $22 million. For most people, that would already be life-changing money. But I never viewed that money as the finish line. To me, it was simply the starting capital for the next set of ideas. The next company I created was called X.com. My vision was simple but ambitious. I wanted to reinvent how money moved on the internet. At the time, online payments were slow, complicated, and not trusted by many people. I believed that in the future, sending money online would be as easy as sending an email. X.com eventually merged with another startup and evolved into what the world now knows as PayPal. PayPal quickly became one of the most important financial technology companies on the internet. It allowed people to send and receive money online easily and securely. As the internet economy grew, PayPal became the payment system powering many online businesses. Then, in 2002, a major turning point happened. The company eBay decided to acquire PayPal. The deal was worth $1.5 billion in stock. At the time, I was the largest shareholder in PayPal, owning about 11-12% of the company. When the acquisition was completed, my share of the deal was worth roughly $180 million. For many people, that kind of money would mean financial security for the rest of their lives. Most investors would take that money, diversify it, and live comfortably forever. But I didn't think that way. Instead of protecting the money, I made a decision that many people considered reckless. I decided to put almost all of it back on the table. I believed there were 3 industries that were critical for the future of humanity. 1, space exploration. 2, sustainable transportation. 3, renewable energy. So I invested nearly everything I had into 3 companies that were attempting to solve these problems. First, I invested about $100 million into a rocket company called SpaceX. At the time, private space companies barely existed. Most people thought space exploration could only be done by governments like NASA. When I started SpaceX, the idea that a startup could build rockets seemed unrealistic to many experts. Second, I invested about $70 million into an electric car company called Tesla. Back then, electric cars were not popular. Many people believed electric vehicles would never compete with gasoline cars. But I believed that if we wanted a sustainable future, electric transportation had to become mainstream. Third, I invested about $10 million into SolarCity, which focused on expanding solar energy adoption. By the time I finished making those investments, I had committed nearly every dollar I earned from the PayPal sale. In fact, at one point during the financial crisis, I was almost completely out of money. Both Tesla and SpaceX were struggling. Rockets were exploding during launch tests, and Tesla was facing enormous challenges building electric cars at scale. There were moments when both companies were close to failing. I even had to borrow money for personal expenses at one point. But I believe deeply in the mission of these companies. For SpaceX, the goal was not just building rockets. The goal was to dramatically reduce the cost of space travel so that humanity could eventually become a multi-planet species. For Tesla, the goal was not simply selling cars. The goal was to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Slowly, things started to work. SpaceX finally achieved its first successful rocket launch after several failed attempts. That success proved that a private company could build reliable rockets. Shortly afterwards, SpaceX secured a major contract with NASA to deliver cargo to the International Space Station. Around the same time, Tesla began gaining global attention with the release of its electric vehicles. Then another huge milestone happened. In 2010, Tesla went public through an initial public offering, becoming the first American car company to go public in decades. As Tesla's value increased and SpaceX continued achieving successful missions, the combined value of my shares in these companies began to grow rapidly. by 2012, something remarkable happened. For the first time, I appeared on the Forbes Billionaires list. My net worth was estimated at $2 billion. That was the moment I officially became a billionaire. But just like becoming a millionaire years earlier, the money itself was never the real objective. The real objective was building companies that could solve massive problems and move humanity forward. Looking back, the most important decision wasn't selling PayPal. The most important decision was choosing to reinvest almost everything into ambitious ideas. If those companies had failed, I might have lost nearly all my money. But if they succeeded, they could change entire industries. Sometimes the biggest rewards come from taking the biggest risks. And for me, becoming a billionaire wasn't about accumulating wealth. It was simply a side effect of building companies that aimed to change the future. My path to becoming the first trillionaire. People often ask me a strange question, do you think you'll become the first trillionaire? But the truth is, that was never the goal. My goal has always been to build technologies that push humanity forward. Whether that's electric cars, reusable rockets, artificial intelligence, or sustainable energy. However, when those ideas begin to succeed at a global scale, the numbers behind them can grow in ways that even I sometimes find surprising. The years between 2020 and 2026 were probably the most dramatic period of wealth growth in my entire life. Many people describe it as a hockey stick curve, a sudden, almost vertical rise. But that curve didn't appear out of nowhere. It was built on 2 decades of risk, failure, and persistence. Back in 2020, I started the year with an estimated net worth of around $27 billion. That already sounded like a huge number to most people, but compared to what happened next, it was only the beginning. During that time, the world was going through massive technological and economic changes. Electric vehicles were finally becoming mainstream, and the world was starting to understand the importance of sustainable energy. The company that represented that shift was Tesla. For years, Tesla had been viewed as a risky experiment. Many critics believed the company would eventually fail. But by 2020, Tesla proved something important. Electric vehicles could compete with and even outperform traditional gasoline cars. As Tesla's production increased and demand exploded across the world, its stock price surged dramatically. By the end of 2020, my net worth had grown from about $27 billion to more than $150 billion. That single year completely transformed the global perception of Tesla and my position in the world of business. But the growth didn't stop there. In 2021, something remarkable happened. For the first time in history, a person's net worth crossed the $300 billion mark. And that person was me. The reason behind that growth wasn't just Tesla. It was also the increasing value of the companies working on technologies that could shape the future. One of the most important of those companies was SpaceX. SpaceX had already achieved something that many experts once believed was impossible: building reusable rockets. Reusable rockets drastically reduce the cost of space travel, which is essential if humanity wants to explore Mars or build infrastructure beyond Earth. Over time, SpaceX also developed Starlink, a satellite network designed to provide global internet access. Governments and organizations around the world began signing major contracts with SpaceX, including partnerships with NASA and various federal programs. These contracts dramatically increased the value of the company. Between 2024 and 2025, the combination of Tesla's growth and SpaceX's success pushed my estimated net worth beyond $500 billion. At that point, the idea of a trillionaire no longer sounded impossible, but the most dramatic change happened in 2026. In February of that year, SpaceX completed a major strategic move. It acquired xAI, combining advanced AI development with space technology and satellite infrastructure. The merger created an entirely new entity valued at approximately $1.25 trillion. Because I owned around 43% of the combined company, the value of my stake alone increased enormously. At the same time, Tesla introduced another powerful catalyst. Years earlier, Tesla shareholders approved an ambitious performance-based compensation plan. The idea was simple. If Tesla reached certain massive valuation milestones, I would receive stock options as a reward for achieving those targets. Recently, Tesla shareholders reapproved that compensation plan. If Tesla eventually reaches its next valuation target, estimated around $8.5 trillion, the value of those stock options could push my personal net worth far beyond $1 trillion. As of March 2026, my estimated net worth is around $839 billion. That number still feels surreal to say out loud, but the number itself isn't the story. The real story is the journey behind it. If you look at the milestones of my career, they tell a very different story than the headlines about wealth. The first milestone happened in 1999, when selling Zip2 helped me become a millionaire. The second milestone came in 2012, when the success of Tesla and SpaceX placed me on the global billionaires list with around $2 billion. By 2020, Tesla's mass market success pushed my wealth beyond $100 billion. And now, in 2026, the combination of electric vehicles, reusable rockets, global satellite internet, and artificial intelligence has pushed that number past $800 billion. Each stage wasn't just about growing wealth. It was about building technologies that didn't exist before. Electric vehicles were once considered impossible to scale. Reusable rockets were once considered unrealistic. Global satellite internet was once considered science fiction. Artificial intelligence is now becoming one of the most powerful tools humanity has ever created. If the path eventually leads to becoming the first trillionaire, that outcome will simply be a side effect of something much bigger. Because the real objective has never been about money. The real objective has always been about building the future. And in many ways, that journey is still just getting started.